Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to WordCampus 2017, Buffalo, New York. First session of the day. You all pumped? You all excited? Yes, I am. Our first speaker today is Dwayne McDaniel from Pantheon, San Francisco, Agency Community and Community Success Manager. I've not had enough coffee yet, obviously. I'm very sorry. Yes, it is a long title, and in academia, we know we've got long titles. So please welcome Dwayne McDaniel.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to WPCampus. Excited to be here. Oh, come on, people. I know it's the morning, and I know it's the first session, but who's excited to be here? Right on. Scare the people at home. I'm going to bang on the desk and make the microphone skip. So thanks for coming to this talk. So just kind of jump in real quick. I'm Dwayne. I work at Pantheon. That's over my face. Interesting. I'm not going to move that. Let's just find out. Yay. I don't need to see myself. So I work at Pantheon, and I'll get back to that in a second. I have been doing improv for 7.5 years of my life. I love comic books, webcomics, and karaoke. I'm so excited about tomorrow night. Last year at WPCampus, it was the best after party. Shanta back there is shaking it. You can find me online always. You can reach me at Dwayne@pantheon.io. I love Twitter. If you guys would tweet about this, I would absolutely love that. And my slides for this and every other talk I do on my blog are over at mcdwayne.com. I'll give a quick plug for Pantheon in a second. Actually, no, I took that out of here. Pantheon is, I'll just do that right now then. Pantheon, who here has ever heard of Pantheon? Woo! That's awesome. That's a lot of people, actually. So for the three of you that didn't raise your hand, we are a website management platform that gives you everything you need to build, launch, and run Drupal and WordPress websites. They want me in front of the camera. Build, launch, and run WordPress websites. We give you awesome tools for collaboration with your teams, ways to spin up new sites from custom upstreams without having to deal with multi-site and the brittleness there and the cookie cutter approach. And then hosting for any size website you need. And that's all I'll say about them. All right, so that's me and where I'm from. So who are you? Like on the count of three, just yell out your name. 1, 2, 3. Good job, people. And on the count of three, what college are you from? I didn't count to 3. You guys jumped the gun on that one. I say guys.
We're anxious. We're excited.
Yeah. Let's just say people. You folks. And so who here is a professional web developer at their university? Awesome. Is anyone here a professional web developer not at a university, like at an agency or something? Awesome. And does anyone here not do anything with WordPress whatsoever and just stumbled into the building today? I got in the end. There's always somebody that just like, I don't know what's going on. I walked into the building. Well, we're here to talk about storytelling. So I want to start out telling you the story of 2 projects, really 2 shops that once upon a time there was an agency that tried to build websites, and every day they worked as fast and smart as they could with the tools that they'd been using for years and years, and their clients were never really satisfied with them until one day they took on a client that was a little too big and a little too finicky, fickle. And because of that, they started neglecting their other work. They kept trying to deliver this big project, so there was a big payoff at the end. And because of that, they kept having to go back to the client, and they would reject everything, and they were afraid of spending money until finally they said, there's no end to this. We have to fire this client and just backtrack on everything, and they lost all of the work. And ever since that day, they've been scared to take on larger projects. They've been scared to go forward as a company, and they've kind of struggled, and they're still there. Versus these guys, this other company. Once upon a time, there was a web company that built with best practices and was staying in the front end of modern trends, and they really were good at scoping. really good at it. And one day they took on a client that was a little fickle, and they knew there was going to be a little bit more than they could handle. But because of that, they did a lot of research, a lot of scoping with this client. And every time a client came back and was fickle, they were able to say, well, the research here, you can calm down. This is what we agreed on earlier. We're on the right path. And because of that, that client was able to engage with them in a very positive way, and they really enjoyed the process until finally all the milestones got hit. The client calmed down, realized that everything they originally agreed to pay for in scope was delivered, paid the bill, moved on, and that shop is now taking on larger and larger clients all the time. This isn't a tale of two different shops. It's the tale of a shop that figured it out. A shop that figured out how we can go from struggling to doing better. And when I say shop, I mean any organization building websites. I realize I'm at a web conference or a higher education conference here. So why did I tell you those two stories? Because once you understand the scope of story or the structure of story, you can start using it for anything, any project, anything you're doing in life. And all stories work fundamentally the same. We'll get back to that. We think in stories, though. Human beings, if you close your eyes and I said, describe your kitchen, you're probably not going to just give me a laundry list of objects in your kitchen. You'll probably visually see your kitchen. And when you think of things like your refrigerator, yeah, you can think of the model of it and how much refrigerant is in it and objects in it, but you probably have 1,000 stories that somehow involve your refrigerator. Human beings are just programmed to do that. In fact, there's a great quote from Lisa Cron, who was a cultural anthropologist, that if opposable thumbs help us hold on, the stories tell us what to hold on to. It's hard to convey to a kid fire bad until they burn themselves. You can tell them the story of Icarus. Don't get too close to the sun. And maybe they take the lesson of that of the morals away from it in a way that there's no other way to really tell them that story. There's no other way to tell them those morals. So I'm going to tell you 3 stories real quick, and then we're going to look at the structure, and we'll get back to the point of storytelling and applying it. So once upon a time, there was this valley where animals could talk. And every day, the rabbits were jerks. They would just run around and tell everybody they were the best. Until one day, a tortoise is like, I'm putting a stop to this. I'm challenging these guys to a race. Challenge the tortoises to a race, or challenge the hare to a race. And because of that, everybody gathered and watched this awesome race. And because of that, the rabbit got way far out in front. And because of that, he decided, I'm going to be lazy for a bit. I can take a nap and still win this thing. Until finally, the tortoise actually is crossing the finish line as the rabbit's just waking up and realizing, oh man, I'm going to lose. The hare is losing. Ever since that day, the rabbits have been taken down a peg, and the valley has been a very different place. Once upon a time, there was a world where human beings and gods interacted on a daily basis. And there's this, and once upon a time, there's a valley where the gods and humans interacted. And every day there's Heracles who would walk around and solve mysteries and just overall be a hero. Until one day he's walking through this valley, this very narrow ravine, and sees Eris's golden apple on the ground. And because of that, he says, well, I hate Eris, and I hate her golden apple because that's what started the Trojan War. So I'm gonna destroy it. And because of that, he smashes it a bunch of times, but every time he hits it, it gets bigger and bigger, until finally he can't get past the ravine because his whole way is blocked. Dionysus shows up and says, what are you doing? If you just left it alone, you'd have been absolutely fine. Well, ever since that day, Heracles doesn't mess with golden apples. He leaves well enough alone. Once upon a time, there was a group of kids that traveled around in a van all over the country. And every day they tried to solve mysteries and make life better for people. Until one day, they got to Thelma's aunt's house and found out she was being harassed by a ghost to try to get her off her property. And because of that, they set up an elaborate set of traps. And because of that, they discovered that there's a lot more going on in this town than anyone's letting on. And because of that, they end up falling into their own traps, and eventually, until finally, they discovered it's just Old Man Johnson in a hat and a mask. And ever since that day, Thelma's aunt has lived problem-free, and the kids have continued their streak of solving crimes and living in a van, and no one thinks that's weird. Every story you ever hear in your entire life follows this model. All of those stories I just told, stories of the shops, every story, every movie you'll watch is some variant of this. I didn't invent it, Ken Adams did. Ken Adams lives in Orinda, California. He wrote a beautiful book, how to improvise a long-form play that uses this story, or uses this theory. This actually maps very, very well to a sine wave. And if there's mathematicians in the room, I apologize for abusing the word sine wave. A nice little function here. And it follows, I need a laser pointer. Actually, just do this with the mouse, can't I? You can see my mouse, awesome. That we start with a beginning state. There is a reality that exists flatly. Once upon a time, there's this setting. This is a world that we have to believe in. And every day a series of events happens. A repetition. But one day something breaks that repetition. And because of that, something else, a series of events happen. And because of that, another series of events happen. And because of that, that spawns yet another series of things. Until finally we reach some kind of climax to this particular story. And then a new reality sets in. Because of all of this stuff, we're at a different type of existence. The everyday is now different because the world was changed. The world was affected. It's because of that and not and then. And then is the details of how the actual pieces of the story went together. Because of that happened. But it's not Heracles hit the apple, and because of that, the apple got bigger, and because of that, he hit the apple again. No, that's a story unto itself. It's completely expandable. Story spine can be however big or small you want. You can have one because of that. You can have 1,000 because of that. But it's the same idea that you have a beginning state and an end state, and something that climaxed to like push that new end state into existence, and a change event that caused all of that to happen. And it's recursive. Every point on the story is itself a brand new story. Every because of that is a complete story unto itself. If it's not really a point in the story. It's an and then. And right now, probably some people in the room, one more slide. And not every story ends well. Not every story has happy endings. You can tell the story of Shop 1 and it can just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And you can have stories that the new reality is exactly the same as the beginning. They go through a whole journey and nothing changes. So I don't want to like mislead you that this is some kind of magic formula to success every single time with every single project you'll ever work on in your life. But some of you are probably wondering right now, why am I talking about Story Spine in a web conference? And that's a good question, and it really is. And for that, I'm going to jump way back into my career because I've been doing sales and marketing for the last 15 years or so. And it sounds like I have a digital echo in here. Sales and marketing for the last 15 years or so. And who here has ever seen a project or a sales funnel before? Awesome. So for the rest of you, I will explain the concept. Everyone in this room right now, for example, if I got your email address and name, you would be a lead. You would be somebody I could potentially talk to about what I do. Out of that, some of you will actually have authority and budget and need and time frame to interact with me, and you could possibly buy what I'm selling. And maybe I do the same for you. Maybe I have something you actually want to buy. Out of that bucket, there is a very small percentage that will actually go through a process of figuring out what exactly that thing is that you're going to buy, or what exactly we're going to do on a project. And from that, you generate a proposal, and from there you go to deliverables. There's a process to get through this. Outreach and networking, that's how you get leads in the first place. Qualifying leads, that's where you see a lot of emails or inbound marketing forms. And then you get to this process of taking qualified leads, people that could pay you, or could actually do a project and approve a project and sit down with them and go through a discovery process. I've been through several sales trainings in my life, sales training schools in my life, and discovery by far is the most important part of this entire process. For project management as well, if you don't have a project well scoped and know exactly what the deliverable looks like at the end and what success looks like, you will never be done. You will never have anybody be happy with you ever, because they don't know what success looks like either, and they're going to keep guessing, and nobody's ever happy because there's always a better version of it in the future, they believe. And maybe there is if you spend more time and more effort, but that's not what they're paying you for. They're paying you for a box of effort, not scope. From that, you drop proposals, and from there, hopefully you profit, and you go back through the cycle. So really, that's what I'm talking about today, is discovery. Discovery is hard because people don't know what they want. They know in general what they want, but they don't know the specifics. If they knew the specifics of what the deliverable would be, they wouldn't need you. They would just be able to go do that because they would know the exact thing. Oh, I need a WordPress installation with these 3 custom post types, these other content types, these media files arranged just so. Like, yeah, you could get somebody out of high school to build that if they could scope it that well. But they don't. What they know is what they want in the big picture. They know where they want to be. They know what their dreams are. This is my favorite quote about that, and I won't read it to you. It's been up here for a second. But it's very true. If you can get someone to tell you their dreams, you can back it into a plan, people will pay for that. That is value. So that's where Story Spine comes in. Because people really understand this point. They understand where they're at today, and they can tell you in detail, painful detail, exactly where they're at today. And people like talking about this. They like talking about the ever since then. They like talking about the future state. It's hard to get people to start talking about the future state, but once they start and grasp the idea, it's hard to get them to stop. Because when you go in and start talking, they don't want a website. Nobody, I don't believe anyone in the world specifically sets out for a project and wants a website as the final thing. They want a website to do something. A website is a tool along a path to get to a new reality. And we spend a lot of time in the industry focused on those deliverables, thinking that's the thing that's going to make them happy. And it's not. Never will be. The thing that's going to make them happy is the new future state. So get them to open up and dream as big as they can on, like, well, 6 months from now, 6 months after we deliver a project for you, what's the reality you want? What do you want to happen different than your current reality? Because again, they know this and they know this. They also know this. They know this very well. But one day, they know the change event. They know why they're in front of you. They know that there is something that has changed from the reality that they have to deal with. They have an idea in their head that, yeah, this website deliverable, that's going to be the thing that changes it and pushes us to this new reality. But they don't know any of this stuff. The nice thing is, when you're doing discovery with folks, the more defined this is, and the more defined this is, and the more defined this is, the easier this is to fill in. So let me give you an example here. I'll come back to this. I rearranged my slides last night thinking this would be a much better flow, and here we are. So let me give you an example of this. So once upon a time, there was a shoe company, and they sold shoes on the internet. And every day, their order system could, get a certain rate of shoes. Let's say 10,000 shoes ordered a day. One day, they hit that capacity, and they realized, uh-oh, if we keep growing in popularity, we're going to fall over, and nobody's going to be happy. And they knew that they had to get to a much higher capacity. And because of that, well, they realized they needed that new system. Because of that, they realized, hey, we can't do this in-house. We can't do this or by ourselves. We need to hire somebody. Because of that, they had to do budgeting, to go through a vendor selection process. So finally, they signed a contract. They got a brand new website. And ever since then, they can sleep at night very well, knowing that 10x the capacity can hit their website, and they're going to be fine. This is basically a dumbed down version of Zappos. I think most of the agencies, most of the developers I talk to in the world are kind of caught up with this right here, and they think that is the whole story into itself. And they go in with, oh, we're going to deliver this technology, and we're going to do this for you. And they don't step back and say, well, what process did you get through to get it here? What's the whole story? Because I'm a part of this larger story. Let's go back here. Once they grasp that, oh, you're laying what you want to do with this project, what my goals are, into a framework, clients are a lot happier. People in general, once they know that, oh, there's a plan in place, people are a lot more comfortable. You can also continually go back to this thing as mile markers. I'm not saying, you know, this thing is set in stone and there are no variables going to enter, but helping people calm down, because people get nervous. Like, oh, we're not done yet. It seems really close to it. I don't know, the design you showed me wasn't 100%. Like, okay, that's cool. Calm down. We knew this was going to happen. This is because of that. We're in the middle of this project. And remember, this is a long journey. We're getting there. So using as a framework, help people calm down. So to go into a couple more points on the expandable and recursive. Again, every point in this is a story. So let's take one of these points and expand it out into its own story. So let's take the budgeting process, which is right here. Well, once upon a time, there's project lead who managed a number of competing projects, and every day they could stamp out whatever budget they needed within a certain box, within a certain set of parameters. One day they realized that is not going to work for this project. And they did a bunch of things, and because of that, they put together a bunch of research. Because of that, they realized, well, the CEO is going to have to be involved. Because of that, they had to present to upper management. Until finally, they got the sign-off from CFO, CEO. And ever since that day, they've been able to sign off on larger budgets for these particular kinds of projects and change the way that they do their work fundamentally. Again, part of the larger story, but a good story to itself. And again, we can dig in even farther. So the actual project of researching for a budget for this type of thing. I won't read this one to you. And yes, this is a little bit of a contrived example, but this is true of any story, any project that you work on. There will be this kind of function to it. All right. I brought worksheets. So if I could get some assistance from our room people. If you have your own pen, that would be awesome. If you don't have a pen, raise your hand and we will get you pens.
Thank you.
And give everybody one. And you're all going to work with somebody else in the room. So the people, yeah, pens. Here you go. Thanks. Thanks, Sean. So you people at home watching this, there is a piece of paper I have that looks something like this on it. It's just put with lines on it. And I'm going to ask everybody in the room to find somebody else to work with. So if you're working with, sitting there with somebody you normally work with, you can work with them. If you don't know the person beside you, meet them. Like, we're all friendly here. And we're going to go through a couple examples of this to give you a chance to actually practice this and not just look at a bunch of slides. So everybody got a worksheet? No. Awesome. Yeah. Pens that are set conference. That's cool. Well, I'll get them back, actually. And I will ask for the pens back, so don't get too attached to them. I'm going to turn this here so I can slide it over here. Feel comfortable. All right. So has everybody got somebody to work with? Everybody? Okay, good. So one person in your group, raise your hand. Just one person out of the duo. I don't see a hand. So one person out of the duo, of every duo, raise your hand real quick. Awesome, you go first. And the other person's going to write down what you're talking about. So I want you to think back to something, a successful project. Let's tell a happy story here. And I want you to put it in these terms. What was the start state? So always start with once upon a time. What did that organization do? What was that department? What was that organization that came to you and said, I need a thing? Like, just start with what they were and every day how they functioned. Just start there. And I like to do the ever since that day next, but you don't have to. But just give it a whirl. There's no wrong on this, and don't worry, don't overthink this. Be brief, high level, But think about it in those terms of like, this is what this organization does. This is what they did on a regular, this is their loop. This is the thing they do all the time. And then fill in the change event. Like what caused them to bring you in the first place? Maybe put the deliverable next, and then fill in that because of that. What was the process you went through to get to that final state, to get them to the new reality? So I'll give you about 3 minutes. If anybody has questions, raise your hand, and I'm happy to come help out.
Every day. It's just that she chose one of those schools. Yeah, but I think I did one day. There you go.
We're about to be too high level, and again, there's no wrong. I'm not gonna make anyone look bad here. All right, for those of you at home, people are filling out these worksheets right now. Everybody's paired up. If you want to play along at home, that's fine. You can do this by yourself. There's no wrong. Don't worry about too much, especially the first couple of these you do. No pressure. Just to get you in the idea of using Story Spine to tell the story of the project. Start putting things in terms of understanding the client need. All right, wrap it up. You're like, just want to make scribbles, that's fine. But who here is done? Who here's got like 1 hour? All right. I will start with you. All right, everybody. If you're not done, just drop this one. It's good. Awesome job, everyone. Like, give some round of applause. I know that no one in this room was expecting a workshop when you walked in. I love surprising people with this thing. It's part of my favorite part of doing it. I'll look all the way on the far end since you started, since you raised your hand slightly before you did. So it's good. Just read yours out loud.
Sure. It's great. You finished just in time. It's great. So once upon a time, there was a manufacturing company that sold lock nuts. They had trouble finding engineers to use their nuts in their designs. And so one day they hired a marketing manager. Because of that, he started marketing strategy. Because of that, sales grew but were sporadic. And because of that, he reached out to their firm to learn about marketing automation. until one day he decided to hire them to run his inbound marketing campaign. And ever since that day, they saw a fourfold increase in leads.
Give a round of applause. That is some bravery going first. Super appreciate it. That's the hardest thing at a tech conference too. I keep wanting people to do this online, but anyway. So let's go back and look at this, because I think we're gonna make a couple slight adjustments. Again, wonderful, amazing job for first time out. This was like fantastic. I loved it. But let's make sure it's applying the right place to the right thing here. So read the first one again. Once upon a time, what was that one?
There was a manufacturing company that sold lock nuts.
And every day. And what's the every day?
And every day they had trouble finding engineers to use their lock nuts in their designs. It's his words, not mine.
I know, no, I know I'm picking on you, and I know this is demo.
Don't kill the messenger.
And I know this is demo. But what was the thing? But every day wasn't that they're having a problem. Every day they were trying to sell lock nuts. Every day there's this thing that they're doing every day. Every day they did X to do X, or do Y, I mean. Every day they ran web campaigns to try to sell lock nuts. They ran print media and send out mailers to try to sell lock nuts. What's the actual thing they're doing time and time and time again to try to do a thing? So that'd be my slight adjustment there. But then what's your but one day?
Until one day they hired a marketing manager.
See, I actually think that's because of that. I think someone in that company realized, like, we're gonna go out of business if we don't do something. What's the change event? Because I don't think hiring a market manager was a change event for the organization. At some point, someone in that organization said, we need to make budget, hire a person, and get out of this rut, get out of this loop that we're in, this feedback loop that is not doing well. I bet there's an actual change event, like orders got lost or enough complaints on message boards. There is something you can point at as a single change event that caused everything else, that caused that marketing manager to be hired. I'm not going to pick on them because of that. I think those were all good. What was your until finally?
Until one day they decided to hire us to run the inbound marketing. Until finally they hired somebody that knew what they were doing with inbound marketing. And ever since that day, what was the final one? Ever since that day, they've seen a fourfold increase in leads.
Let's go back to, no, I'm serious, go back to, I know, and this is wonderful, but let's go back to, and every day, they tried to sell lock nuts to engineers.
Yeah.
And ever since that day, they have sold 4 times the lock nuts to engineers. That's the structure. The every day and ever since that day should be mirror images of each other, but with an improvement. So if they were trying to sell lock nuts, they sold more lock nuts. Because 4x is an awesome number, but when you sit down with someone and they say, I want 4x the leads, like, why on earth do you want 4x the leads? How many leads are you getting now? It's like, I want to sell more lock nuts. Like, okay, I totally get that. You want to sell a lot more lock nuts. All right, let's get you to that. And then figure out what those metrics are and through that process of discovery. All right, but that's an awesome, give them a round of applause again, too. I know I'm picking on you. But that, just want to drill in your heads this formula. So now you can probably guess what's coming next. We're going to do it again, and you're going to switch over. So if you were telling the story, now you're writing. If you're writing, now you're telling the story. And now I'm going to give you 3 minutes. This time I'm going to stick you to it. And again, don't worry about getting it too right. Just worry more that the and every day and ever since that day are more reflections of each other. And that, but one day is a real change event, a point in time that happened. All right, go.
Working out, come on, let's be working, let's be working. Working hard.
People at home are all like, all right, for those of you at home, I realize that you can't hear the stories out there. I could try to get them to come up closer to the mic. Apologies, but now this is the worksheet part, so yeah, apologies there. All right, another minute and a half. All right. Weird. That's why I bring pens.
Yes.
All right. Is anybody done yet? Anybody done? As soon as you're done, raise your hand. Okay. All right, everybody, wrap it up. Give it like a little. I'll give you like 30 more seconds to subscribe. But wrap it up. Again, we're not. You don't have to turn these in. It's not great. Your final grade at WPCampus doesn't depend on this test. Yeah. Okay, let's ring it in there. So we have a volunteer finish first, so you get to go first. So let's go ahead and read this. And we had requested home if you could read it really loud, that would be helpful.
So once upon a time, an academic department realized they had an outdated website, web presence, and every day leadership complained, and nobody wanted to own the project. Until one day, they realized they didn't have capacity to do the project in-house, and because of that, they decided to commit to hiring a vendor. And because of that, they put out an RFP, and because of that, they hired a vendor. Until one day, they had an effective website. And ever since that day, there were no more complaints, and they had a modern site, and could manage their online reputation.
So, again, round of applause. Thank you for going second. So again, I'm going to do a little bit of just adjustment on that, and just again, so we get the ideas in our heads and not trying to pick on you. Thank you very much for volunteering. So what's the Once Upon a Time?
Once upon a time, an academic department realized they had an outdated website.
So was that the job of the academic department, is to realize they had an outdated website? What academic department was it? Like, okay. But so the Once Upon a Time is just the landscape. It's just like Once Upon a Time, there's an academic department. That's all you need.
Okay.
Like, we don't need to put a problem with it. We don't need to like get into all of the other things ahead of time. It's super simple. Like, what does your company do? That's the question in Discovery you ask to get that. So what's your company do exactly? And so how are you going about doing the thing that you're trying to do? That's the everyday. And every day I see with that description in the beginning, I don't even know what they do every day. So it should be like, we are a department. We're the history department, and every day we try to deliver curriculum to students in an effective way. Or I don't know what history departments actually do. So that was a terrible example on my part.
Very simple. They do history.
They do history. Every day they did history.
Okay.
Every day they did history. And ever since that day, they've done history better. That's what we'll get to. But it's the everyday, like what's the actual thing they're trying to accomplish and the steps they're taking in a repeated pattern to get to that thing? Is it building new web content? Is it, so again, not trying to pick on you for this one. But you actually, I think there's two stories in here, are a longer because of that. So let's adjust this over a little bit. So every day they tried to deliver this thing, but one day enough people complained. Enough people, the president finally got involved, or the dean, or what was the thing that pushed them over the edge to make them have that realization? Like that was, what's the, I'm not asking you to actually say it out loud, this is a real case study. But what was the single event where they couldn't do it that way anymore? Were they going to lose students? Were they going to shut down the college? Were people going to get fired? If it's not personal, it's not really a change event. And personal, I mean, someone is awake at night worrying about how they're going to make their mortgage payment, their car payment, send their kid to college. If it's not at that level, they're probably not going to invest the time and effort to actually care enough to get things done. If they care and they're behind you on a project, they're going to be your champion and you're going to just sail through with a lot less problems. If it's not personal, it's just another thing they got to get a checkbox on. Good luck engaging them, because that's just really hard. So I like because of that's a lot though. But I think that but one day, so what was your one day again? They hired a, but no, was it?
Until one day they realized they didn't have the capacity to do the project in-house.
Yeah. Until one day they realized they needed to do something different. So, and because of that, they did research and realized they didn't have the expertise in-house to do this. So we're just moving that, but one day over one, and it becomes because of that. And what was the until finally? What was the final deliverable?
They had an effective website.
Yeah. So finally the project was delivered that did, well, let's shorten it to effective website, but there's metrics there. And your until finally has KPIs. If it doesn't, it's not a real project. If there's not a final box that they say, we did X, Y, and Z, and we agreed in scoping that we're going to deliver you X, Y, and Z for X amount of dollars, you don't really have a project on your hands. You have an idea and you're collaborating with people, but it's not really a professional project. So there's a final measurable box. So in this case, until finally they had a website that could, and I'm not asking for all the specifics of this, but what was the final thing that was different from that website than the previous website? Oh.
Final thing, if we measured, I guess, is what is more effective in the measurable, I guess about that was that, I guess, there were people complaining there was increased traffic with like higher results.
Yeah. So yeah, we raised SEO by a certain percentage. We appeared on Google's first page. There were measurable specifics that were delivered. And ever since that day, well, less people complain, but they are able to do the thing that that department does more effectively with better impact and bigger impact. So again, not trying to pick on you. I don't even think I am. But thank you very, very much for volunteering. Everybody, just all right, I got to wrap this thing up. So I have some reference materials here. But before I do that, once you see and understand the framework, though, this is everything. Every story you'll ever tell, every project you'll ever do, every movie you'll ever watch, every book you'll ever read is some version of this. And once you understand this framework, and that's why I put you through that worksheet exercise, it's hard not to see it. It's hard to unsee. And this is how I get stuff done. So if I get assigned a project I have no idea how to do, I look at what I know, and I look at the final state where I need to know, I build it until finally, and then work my way back. Because I know what the change event is. I know why I'm doing that project. I know what put me there. I just got to fill in 3 dots, maybe 18 dots, or maybe 1 dot because of that. This is insanely useful for that. The other thing is people really kind of enjoy stories. Like, since we think in stories, if you give people a laundry list and an Excel spreadsheet of here's the features we're delivering, maybe they'll understand some of that, but they'll always understand the ever since then. They'll always understand the new future state that they want to get to. So, How to Improvise Long Form Play with Ken Adams, highly recommend that book. Impro from Keith Johnstone. And these slides are all on mcdwayne.com, and you can find these links within this doc. Heroes of 1,000 Faces, if you haven't read that, it's a great book. And yeah, finally, Lisa Cron's awesome book on Wired Story Writers.
Your slides in the Slack channel.
Oh yeah, add them to the slide channel as well.
It's already there.
Oh, it already is? Thank you very much. Already. So they're in the slide channel, everybody. So again, I was Dwayne, I work at Pantheon. You can always get me on Twitter. I prefer Twitter actually than email, weirdly enough. But MC Dwayne or Dwayne at pantheon.io. And so I'm out of time, but any questions? Okay.
Well, have you ever seen Kurt Vonnegut's thing on YouTube where he gives his graph of what the story looks like?
Oh yeah.
He has a lot more bumps.
Yep.
Because if you're really going to sell a novel, you have to have feet.
Oh, absolutely. There needs to be peaks and valleys, and this is super simplified. So absolutely, if you actually read Ken Adams' book, it is way more detailed. It uses that basic framework and then breaks down each piece by a lot of things. So if you're improvising a play or you're like writing a novel, there's entire journeys you have to go through between the steps, and like because of that is completely its own standalone story. You can like break out and have South Park uses the same methodology that Vonnegut does actually. But yeah, it's actually good. So look up Kurt Vonnegut storytelling on YouTube, and you'll see exactly what this guy's talking about. Those other questions?
Yeah, so a lot of this looks a little bit like agile when you're talking about stories.
Yeah.
When it comes to the actual execution, you worked out what you worked out what you want to do, how you like to do afterwards. Do you recommend agile for a bit in between?
If agile is a very misunderstood term, I think, and I'm hesitant to just say yes, agile are all the things. But I believe in agile if it's done properly. But agile is the ability to adapt your plans as information emerges. But it doesn't mean lack of planning. It means planning constantly. So starting a Scrum and saying, here's the end state we have to be at the end of the sprint. Here's the beginning state where we're at now. Why we need to do this right now is this change event. If this is the next thing we have to do. We know the deliverable, we know like the future state we have to, so how do we get to this deliverable in 2 weeks or whatever long your sprint is? Stand-up, same thing. Like we know what we're at today, we know what we need to be at the end of the day. How do we do that? So applying that to a Scrum mentality or Agile mentality, absolutely. There's a great talk from, who gave that? Design for Drupal. And I'm bringing up a Drupal conference at a WordPress event. But go find Design for Drupal. Kelly Albright from Last Call Media gave one of the best talks I've ever heard about Agile about a month ago up in Boston. And he talks actually kind of about this, same idea in Agile. All right, one more question, then we got to get out of here. Sorry.
Well, I just thought that slide with the other one about the dream, the plan, the action.
Yeah.
That was also another really key way to think about all this.
Oh yeah.
I never heard that quote.
Greg Eastreet's a weird guy, but he's got really good quotes.
That's not a question.
All right. Well, you took the last question spot, so everybody else suffers.